Welcome to Charts Today. My name is David Linton, and this morning's edition for Monday, the 12th of December, comes to you from London. Big jump in the oil price this morning, which we'll look at in a minute. But first of all, we start with currencies. When we look at the dollar index, so this is a basket of currencies against the US dollar. We're expecting an interest rate rise in the US this week, so that has kept the dollars quite strong. We did have this pullback on the medium-term chart, and now we're just recovering. Remember, this is my long-term charts, my medium-term, and my short-term. This data coming to you in the Updata system from DTN IQ feed, a brilliant feed, a low-cost alternative, and it's absolutely fantastic. And so here we see. We're rising again on the dollar, nudging back up to this new high. We saw this recovery in November off the election. Will we run and go higher? But we are just seeing the dollar index in bullish territory again. We were below the cloud most of last week. We're now back above. We don't have any really strong convincing targets on the very short term, but we do see here that this is building up for another thrust target, which should take us higher. So dollar strength is back. If we look at the euro, back below the cloud in the last couple of days, so euro weakness the theme. We have all these downside targets still, 102, 103. So really at the moment it's all about dollar strength. If we make new lows in the euro below this 105 level, that activates some very big downside targets, so that's quite scary. Look at the Japanese yen. That's going much higher this morning at a dollar against the yen, and so yen weakening, dollar strengthening. 116. So $1 now buys you 116 yen. That's the way to look at it. And actually, that's just storming ahead, really confirming the dollar strength. And yen is often seen as a risk-on trade. The fact that yen is not, and here we saw a lot of the risk-on trade in 2016. The fact that yen is now falling demonstrates that the appetite for risk is increasing. And if we look at sterling, sterling is below the cloud, so it is in bearish territory against the dollar, trying to get through, but we do now have this downside target of 122.70, which is activated. So we are still very much trading in this low 120s range. Although we're just above 125 at the moment, it does look like we will fall in the short term. If we look at euro against sterling, this chart's inverted, so this is basically sterling buying. We're seeing here the sterling sell-off. This was really the euros rising and sterling. Now, actually, sterling is just strengthening a little bit against the euro. So euro weaker, sterling stronger. That picture the same on the Swiss franc. Sterling now looking a little bit stronger at the 128 level. And if we look at the Aussie, same thing at about 169. So has been into the 150s this year. So sterling has recovered a little bit. Taking a look at the US stock market, the S&P 500, which closed at 2259 last week, that was a really strong week. We see that on the weekly chart, this big green candle here. So that was a strong week for the S&P 500. US stock market has convincingly broken out now above this 2200 level. We don't have any clear upside targets to the short term at the moment, but we do have some very clear targets to the medium and long term of anywhere between 15 and 23%. So it looks like next year will be quite a good year for US stock markets. And if we take a look at the Nasdaq, we see here the Nasdaq is just nudging this 4900 level. That is the resistance level that we really do need to break, and this week might just be the week we do it. So here we just see again, we're just nudging that level we saw at the end of November, causing a little bit of resistance here. Can we get through this week? If we look at the futures down very slightly this morning in London. Here we see the E-mini. Again, we're down about 0.5%, so it may not be today that we break through on this chart. If we take a look at the 1 minute, this might just give us a heads up as to where this market will go. And we see here we've got on the 5x3, we do have targets of 4995 and 5050, so that actually would break the 4900 level. So it's giving us a little bit of a clue. But if we go down to the smallest box size, 1x3, we see here that we have this either direction, and this uncertainty. We did make this new high, but just couldn't hold this 4900 level on the E-mini. And this is the chart to watch at opening today. Will we get new thrust targets, giving us a clue as to where we go next? If you look at in Europe, the FTSE 100 down very, very slightly this morning, but it is up. over the cloud. We see here we're above on the short term, above on the medium term, and above on the long term. As the picture is looking pretty rosy, about 3% upside on a target given back in early November. So no new targets at the moment, but that is looking pretty bullish. And the FTSE 250, the broader-based market, is actually looking even better. So we are just seeing here above the cloud and running. Just held that resistance here, or support here on the cloud, and still bullish there as well. Um, and if we take a look at the DAX, DAX is this is the week last week. You see that big candle week. So DAX had an amazing week. There's the run. Really broke convincingly out of that range. And remember, when we do this, when we break out of the range, it's like a coiled spring. We now are going to run probably in the DAX. We've got 3.5% upside here, 4% upside on early November, and look at that market just running. So DAX looking very strong at the moment. Nikkei is also looking strong on that weaker yen, just coming through on the weekly cloud, so that's quite good. Now we turn to commodities, and we start with Brent. Big story was the non-OPEC nations over the weekend announcing a cut in production as well, and so that's really jumped the price this morning. We have had this target since the 29th of November off that previous OPEC announcement of 8.9% upside to $62. We're at 57 at the moment, so we've still got quite a bit of work to do. But we do see these targets now, 59, 64, a lot of targets in that direction, and oil is really breaking out. We're heading into the strong quarter now, so we would expect prices to be pretty strong. So bullish on all fronts. We're seeing that again on the WTI price. US nat gas settled back a bit last week, just came back to 354. So we did pull back a bit below the cloud here, but we are seeing this long-term transition. This is the level we need to break. This 385 set in October for us to really see that move. We take a look at wheat. Wheat prices falling back a bit this morning. They were looking a bit bullish last week as we crossed the cloud, but of course the long and medium term pictures still pretty bearish for wheat. And if we take a look at the gold price, pulling back under the cloud here, and another sort of pull on the daily chart, and we're seeing this 60-minute chart just always just finding new lows here at the moment. 11:45. We haven't turned bullish and bearish completely on this cloud, but we are starting to see some quite big downside targets. Having said that, gold does tend to go strongly in the new year, so we are expecting that we might just start to see a turnaround once we get convincingly above this cloud. And the same here on silver. We've just turned bearish again there as well. Taking a look at some of the US tech stocks, we see here Apple. We are above the cloud again with Apple, so we've got an upside target of about 3%. Google, much the same thing. We see here above the cloud 4% and 5% upside. Amazon, tech all starting to look a little bit better, not quite as good on Amazon. If we look at Facebook, Facebook just coming back above the cloud, nudging this 120 level back into the 120s would be good. Starting to look like a little bit like a double bottom here. And then Microsoft has been quite a good performer, making new short-term highs. So this is one of the better looking stocks at the moment. Taking a look at some UK stocks, quite interesting here. If we go to the UK market, we'll start with the bigger performers. So here we have a look at M&S. That's the strongest FTSE stock up this morning. Quite a big jump there, 2.3%. No clear upside targets of recent moves, but we do have these ones from 11th of November of about 4% upside, and we're just seeing some thrust targets here. Still a very long-term bearish trend, and we have been in this really big range, so quite a difficult call. Of course, Shell, a big strong performer this morning on that oil price, a long-term recovery underway here. Good targets all round, so Shell looking pretty good. And if we look at stocks like BP, much the same thing here. So we're seeing big moves to the upside. And if we take a look at the poor performers, we're seeing here banks and if we look at some other stocks like Capita. So various stocks, a really mixed picture here. Lots of stocks down 2%, and then on the upside, quite a lot of stocks up that sort of 2% as well. And of course, as always, there's a lot in the middle. But the great thing is, by looking at this picture, we can get a quick look. Centrica is another energy stock. We can get a quick look at the picture for each of these stocks. That's it for today. Just keep an eye on these currency rates as we run into the Fed announcements. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.